Alright, what's up people? We're going to do a quick 1-bar PVE build for a Magplar damage dealer with the Oakensoul ring. This build takes advantage of the current 1-bar meta in pretty much every way, so in essence we have a little bit of shielding, and then we lay down a bunch of AoE spells, we channel heavy attacks, and then we execute our enemies, usually being bosses in the case for PVE. You'll pretty much be melting both groups as well as single targets with this setup, so it's pretty versatile when it comes to DPS in a PVE setting. Firstly, we are playing as a high elf. You could also play as a dark elf or a Khajiit as well, so that part's entirely up to you. For our skill points, we have gone 100% into magicka here. Our Mundus stone is going to be the thief, so we can stack up a little bit of extra critical along with our divines armor pieces that we'll talk about later. I'm using bewitched sugar skulls as my food here, but you could also use jewels of misrule as a cheaper option. Going over to our armor, our two main sets are the Sergeant's Mail set, which is a heavy armor type, as well as the Storm Master set. Both of these sets increase our damage done with heavy attacks, especially as we channel them one after the other, compounding to higher and higher damage with these stacks of Sergeant's Focus that we're building up from the Sergeant's Mail set. We want to run with a Monster Helm, and I'm using the Light Slimecraw's Guise to gain a little bit more critical chance. Our mythic, the Oakensoul ring, is infused with a spell damage enchantment, and our weapon is a lightning staff from the Sergeant's Mail set, which is set up with a precise trait and a flame damage enchantment. The specific setup for armor pieces that I'm running is a Sergeant's chest, so we always want to have heavy armor as our biggest piece. Two jewelry pieces from that set as well, both of those being bloodthirsty with spell damage enchantments, and our staff of course. And then for the Storm Master set, we kind of just fill out the rest, being our belt, our shoes, our shoulders, gloves, and pants. All of these armor pieces are divines with max magicka glyphs, and our two non-mythic jewelry pieces, as I said before, are both bloodthirsty with spell damage glyphs. The Sergeant's Mail set comes as a random drop from the Wayrest Sewers dungeons. You can run the first or the second iteration of the dungeon as many times as you need to get those pieces. The first version of the dungeon is a little bit quicker, so if you're going to farm for this gear, I would suggest running the first one rather than the second one. And then the Storm Master set is another dungeon set that you get from the Tempest Island dungeon, so just keep running that dungeon over and over again to farm for that set as well. A quick note about farming for these sets is that if you have a tank or a healer character, you'll be able to jump into the dungeon finder and find a group much more quickly than if you're playing as a DPS character. You can always collect these pieces and stick them into your bank and hand them off to the character that you actually want to be equipping them to. And alongside that, it's always good practice to loot treasure chests when you're in dungeons. So if you have enough extra skill points for the Keen Eye treasure chests skill line under the excavation skill line in the world category, that can be very useful as well to see treasure chests from a greater distance. And then just one other obvious thing is that you can always ask your group members inside of dungeons if they got any of the pieces that you're looking for, since everyone in the group can trade items that are looted inside of the dungeon. So most people will just give you whatever you need for free if they loot it, while other people might want you to tip them like 5k or something like that. To help with this specifically, you can also install the LUI extended add-on and configure the settings to show you which notable items that your group members are looting. So you can kind of be creepy and ask them for a specific item rather than plainly asking the whole group if anybody got any of those 5 items that you're looking for. As always, you ideally want your entire armor and accessory setup to be fully upgraded to gold, so save up all those gold materials and you'll be more protected as well as do more damage once everything is upgraded all the way up. If you can't afford perfection at the beginning, don't let that scare you away. There's nothing wrong with using some armor pieces that aren't transmuted to divines yet, or a few pieces that aren't fully upgraded yet. Just be sure to upgrade those pieces as you can afford to, being sure to complete your daily random dungeons and stack up more transmute crystals. Over to skills now. We are running with Blazing Spear as one of our AoE spells, Living Dark as our shield/healing ability, Unstable Wall of Storms as another AoE spell, Razor Caltrops as a third AoE spell, and Radiant Glory as an execution as well as kind of a healing ability. And the ultimate that we'll be using here is Solar Prison, which is a nice AoE spell with a synergy that does extra damage. You could easily swap this out for Shooting Star if you want to grind up the Mage's Guild skill line, or even Elemental Storm from the Destruction Staff skill line for a different AoE ultimate that is just kind of weaker, so Solar Prison is probably the best bet if you aren't going to be grinding up your Mage's Guild. Technically, Shooting Star is actually the best option, so if you have access to it, I would suggest using it. Otherwise, Solar Prison is fine, and actually better than fine if you're in a group setting and you know that somebody's going to be activating that synergy for you. Over to our champion points. In the Warfare category, we are going to be slotting Weapons Expert, Wrathful Strikes, Thaumaturge, and Exploiter. All of this is basically meant to increase our damage output across the board. Exploiter specifically works alongside our Unstable Wall of Elements ability as it sets our enemies off balance, so we want to be sure to keep that up as we can remember to. Over in the fitness section, we have Boundless Vitality, Siphoning Spells, Fortified, and Rejuvenation. All of this helps out with our resource sustain, adds to our tankiness just a little bit, and slightly increases our health pool. All of our passive skills should be maxed out in the Adrix Spear and the Dawn's Wrath categories. You'll want Master Ritualist from the Restoring Light skill line, all of your racial skills, Destruction Staff skills, and armor skills. We always want to unlock Continuous Attack from the Assault skill line from the Alliance War category to get that passive mount speed buff. And you can also get any guild passives that you desire from the Fighters Guild or Undaunted or whatever. The Provisioning skill line also provides us with the Gourmand passive, which increases the duration of food that we eat, and the Alchemy skill line provides us with Medicinal Use, which increases the duration of any effects from potions that we use. So if either of those apply to you, then I would be sure to put points into them as you can. For our rotation, we basically want to get all of our AoE abilities down on the ground. So when you're coming into combat, pop up your Bubble Shield and put down your Caltrops, your Shards, and your Unstable Wall. All of these AoE spells are 10 seconds long in duration, so the order in which you cast them is up to you, but I prefer to launch the Caltrops first, since they get debuffed with Major Breach once they take damage from it. And then once all of your spells are on the ground, the main idea is just to keep channeling heavy attacks to build up those stacks of Sergeant's Focus. Once the AoE spells expire, recast all of them again. Once your shield goes down, redeploy it if you need to, and go back to heavy attacks. Once the enemy is low on health, we can spam them with Radiant Glory without having to worry too much about keeping those AoE skills on the ground any longer. And if you just need a quick heal and the Bubble Shield isn't quite doing it for you, then you can always hit him with a Jesus Beam and you'll get a little bit of a heal back from that. And you can pop a Tri-Potion because we all have 5 million of them in our bank. So with this build, you should be fine in most dungeons, arenas, trial situations, and you should be able to complete most, if not all of the dungeons on normal difficulty as a solo player. If you find yourself needing to parse a dummy, be sure to use tomato garlic chutney as your food to gain more magicka in place of a health boost, and be sure to slot Shooting Star as your ultimate since you won't have any group members around to activate the synergy for you if you're attacking a dummy. In overland content, as well as in your daily normal dungeons, you could actually just hold the attack button to channel heavy attacks all day long without really casting any spells, and you would be fine 99% of the time, but it tends to get boring to do that, so we throw in some AoE to spice things up. Alright, so I've slapped some footage on from a random normal dungeon that I did earlier just to give a little look at the playstyle that this build centers around and kind of how it looks. So if it looks fun to you, be sure to give it a shot yourself. Let me know if you made any changes that help the build perform better, anything like that. Thanks for watching as always.